and welcome to Living on Crypto with me, Lawrence Ray. And today I am joined with Kgothatso, the creator of Machankura, amongst other things. How are you doing today?
Yeah, man, I'm all good. How are you?
Life is good on my end. So yeah, you spend like quite a bit of time spending and bringing in Bitcoin and building things around the Bitcoin world. So I'm excited to have you here, and I'm sure everyone's going to enjoy listening to what you have to say about what you've been up to and about South African community and things like that. To kick us off,
hmm
how did you discover Bitcoin in the first place? What's the story behind that?
Well, yeah, so it's quite a long story, but to keep it short, I first heard about it in university in a lecture and didn't pay too much attention to it. Then got offered a payment in Bitcoin somewhere on the internet and ignored that option and went for a PayPal a payment instead. And then during the 2017 bull market, I was like, wait, what is happening? As I was seeing it more and more often in the news, I was like, why did I not take that 1.3 Bitcoin? And yeah, then I decided to take a dive, started shitcoining, and the 2018 bear market happened. And then I was like, wait, what is happening? Why is all these things I bought going down in value? And yeah, then I was like, oh, okay, cool. So the most legit option is Bitcoin. And yeah, that's what I decided to stick to. And ever since like 2019, I've been committed to Bitcoin and trying to also bring it into my community.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. I mean,
hmm
that's it's a story of it's similar to many, I guess, with its own nuances. Like similar here,
hmm
shit coining originally, and then spent some
hmm
time realizing that maybe it wasn't the best idea, and I should just go with the one I trust.
Yeah,
Um,
most definitely.
One of the things as well for me was like working on custom support for Bitrefill taught me that like, hey, Bitcoin's the one that seems to just work properly and everything's quite straightforward. Whereas like when you
Yeah.
realize, oh, they've got to like stop
hmm
this chain and all this stuff, you're like, oh, okay, this is definitely more difficult.
Yeah, most
Um,
definitely.
so yeah, the obviously one thing I really want to talk about is Machankura, which like obviously allows you to spend Bitcoin and send Bitcoin along the Lightning Network without like
hmm
a smartphone or even a laptop or anything. Could you explain
hmm
more about like what that project is and like why you felt the need to make it, and just give people an understanding of what it is that you helped build and get out there?
Yeah, cool. So let me first explain it how I explained it after I built it. So it's basically a way for people without internet connected devices to send and receive Bitcoin. And the main motivation is not too many people have smartphones. Like more people have feature phones and smartphones across the African continent, but even if they have a smartphone, they may not have internet access because internet penetration levels are at 30% across the African population. But yeah, then we are in this spectrum of weird stuff in a lot of developing markets where a person may have a smartphone with an internet connection, but they are only able to access like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, because net neutrality is not really a thing in developing markets. And also Facebook makes deals with the telecoms so people can freely access Facebook, or Twitter also had it in South Africa, similar feature. So then you're in this world where people are not able to access your app because your app is not part of the Facebook ecosystem, Twitter ecosystem, Instagram ecosystem, whatever. And if that's not the case, sometimes just so happens people, are just using entry level Android devices. They can't install your app because they run out of storage space. Yeah. So yeah, if you want to reach as much people as possible, which I think is a very important thing for any payment related technology or payment platform, both parties need to be able to send or receive, right? So yeah, then my focus is then, okay, how can we get rid of all these barriers? And we use USSD, which is basically a similar technology or protocol used for other things across the African continent. There's something called a please call me. So if you don't have phone credits, you dial the USSD number off and include the person's phone number that you're trying to contact. And then your telecom will basically then send an SMS to that person saying you would like them to call you, right? And yeah, this is USSD based, but I'm using it for Bitcoin specifically, Lightning addresses and all that other stuff. And yeah, setting up an integration with other services like Bitrefill, so that people who have Bitcoin but cannot access like the bitrefill.com website or Bitrefill app can then also spend their Bitcoins on Bitrefill items and products. And yeah, then there's the explanation I had before I built it. So I had a Raspberry Pi. I just installed a Lightning node, and I was like, what can I do with this Lightning node? And this project was born. And yeah, so it was just me tinkering with stuff. And yeah, now we're here.
Pretty cool. It's awesome when like someone's just, like trying to learn and create things. And often the best way to learn, I find, is by having some kind of idea or something to do with it. Because otherwise you're not motivated to actually learn to do the things you have to do to get there, to build whatever app you want to build. So it's cool that something that you saw as like an experiment has actually become super useful for a lot of people. So when it comes to USSD, like it's something that probably a lot of people in, I don't know, the UK, US probably don't know that much about. Like, why did you choose to use that rather than like text, like MMS? Like, is it not possible to do that this service via like SMS or MMS, or is it only possible with USSD? Or like I don't know if you can give some kind of idea around that.
Well, it is possible to do it with SMS. And yeah, basically, I would have also been able to do it via SMS. It's just that I didn't have a service provider that I could use to, do it via SMS, because what you need is two-way SMS. And I think one of the biggest SMS service providers, Twilio, they do not have good coverage across the African continent, And there's actually been a project that does Bitcoin over SMS. I think it's called Cointext or Cointigo or something else, Cointilio or something like that. And I looked at their stuff and I was like, hey, wait, this looks weird. I looked at their coverage map. Like they were barely in developing markets, they were in America, Europe, and Australia, I think, and in South Africa. South Africa may have been their only developing market in Africa. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Why would you have such a technology but not bring it into markets where it makes the most sense? So for me, then USSD wins because USSD has a prompt response type interface, so a person doesn't need to know commands or anything like that. They just dial the number and they are prompted for what is possible, and it's much easier for a person to pick up the service in that regard. Yes, with SMS, once a person becomes accustomed to how the service works, then they could easily and quickly send commands using one SMS, but then the learning curve might be steeper than with USSD. So yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, yes, there's two really good reasons, I guess. Like you said, one, it's much better suited for the markets like that you're going for, which is the developing countries and markets, because it's better coverage. And then, yeah, two, as you say, kind of like if you use a Telegram bot or any kind of like automated bot on like Slack or Discord, when you write something, it will like come up with your options. And so, yeah, it's way easier. Like you have to remember that you've got to do /send, blah, 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 all this stuff, which you would if you were doing a text. And you get charged for each text as well with a lot of carriers. So you end up having to get it wrong, do it again, lose another 10 cents or whatever. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, so let me add to your point with saying that USSD, you get charged for time. So you get charged for every 20 seconds used. So instead of getting in charge for each message, you get charged for every 20 seconds used. And yeah, are we still together? Oh yeah.
Yeah, we get.
So I was.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah, sorry, we lost you for a second, but you came back and it finished your sentence, so it makes sense.
Oh, okay. Cool. I know, proper. Yeah, so basically, yeah, USSD, you just get charged for every 20 seconds you use instead of every message you send. So you can send an unlimited amount of time within that session. Man, and you can send an unlimited amount of messages within that 20 seconds.
Yeah, it definitely makes a lot more sense then. Well, it definitely explains that. Better user experience, better for cost, and better for coverage. So clearly the best way to go for your product. You mentioned like obviously that you have like hooked up with different services like Bitrefill, for example.
Mhm.
Like obviously then people are able to top up their mobile phone or maybe even purchase a gift card. I'm not sure how that would work, but they're able to actually buy
Mhm.
things from, and I'm assuming store owners, whoever accepts Lightning, you can actually go buy something with just your like small Nokia or tiny feature phone. Like what
Yeah.
else? Like what are people? Yeah, what are people doing with it? Like I guess like outside of Bit Refill, like have you seen like examples of a lot of people actually using it like on a regular basis to live and stuff, or like send money to friends and family?
Well, yeah, I don't think we have gotten to that point yet. It has been pretty much a very experimental thing for now, and only basically been used by the heavy Bitcoiners. I was in Ghana for the Africa Bitcoin conference, and I actually had an opportunity to pay for my dinner using the service because the store owner uses a feature phone in the store. It's called a Yam phone in Ghana, and yeah, so that was basically the first time where I actually sent payment to someone for dinner. And Parker was in South Africa, and he used it to buy what's this? What did Parker buy? He bought bus tickets to Durban or to Cape Town, or one of the two. And yeah, and that, by the way, that was a Bitrefill integration. Here I think may be posting a video about it sometime soon, but he has tweets, and yeah, so he managed to buy a bus ticket using the service, and yeah, outside of that, it's still early days. There are a few people who want to use it, but I still haven't met all their needs yet. And as soon as I'm done, and as soon as I give them those features that they want, I believe they will be using it on a regular basis.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I really like the idea. I mean, you definitely see in a future situation where like people are generally using Bitcoin more than they are like fiat currencies, maybe, or they I don't know,
Mhm.
like they're using it side by side with the CBDCs or something in a worst case scenario. Even you can see how it could be super useful, say across like Africa and other countries that don't have amazing internet coverage or adoption of like great data plans. But even like to be
Mhm.
honest, like I could even see myself using it. Like sometimes I get like mobile signal in some places in Brazil, for example, but like I can't get like data signal. Like even then, it's like it's kind of useful. Like if you get
Mhm.
to a point where people are accepting Bitcoin in various ways, it can be kind of handy. What countries has the service kind of expanded to? Like because you said obviously South Africa started. You said you used it in Ghana, and Paco used it.
Uganda, yeah, Nigeria, Kenya. So I'm in 8 countries:
Hmm.
Malawi, Namibia, and Zambia.
Nice. Okay, so 8 different countries now. And then like
Mhm.
are you planning to kind of increase and better the features before like continuing to expand countries, or are you going more for like countries first features, or is it you just mixing it up? Like is there a priority, I guess, that you're going for, countries or features?
So my priority is more about the user life cycle. So I want to make sure that the users are able to, what's the word? What's the sequence? Acquire Bitcoin and then spend Bitcoin, so close this loop. So in South Africa, I think from a feature perspective, it's perfect. And from a lifecycle perspective, it's perfect. I could buy Bitcoin at almost any corner store, or well, a Bitcoin voucher at almost any corner store, and redeem that voucher for Bitcoin using a Steco, and then buy my groceries using Bitrefill at Pick and Pay or Checkers, and pay for electricity as well using crypto converting. So yeah, it's for me good. And I would like to get it to that point in all the countries we're deployed in, because otherwise people onboard to the service, but then they have no way to acquire Bitcoin. And so I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Why do I have 100 users in this country that don't have a way to acquire Bitcoin? So yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, yeah, you mentioned like mentioned obviously using like Azteca to buy Bitcoin and like from what I understand, like when we've spoken before, like you obviously spend Bitcoin a fair bit yourself and kind of contribute to the circular economy and use it. You mentioned crypto convert. Like how does that work? Is it like because one thinking here is like there's some services like for example in Brazil where you could we have PIX payments, which are like instant bank transfer payments in Brazil, and there's like QR codes, and a lot of like a hot dog stand and big stores and supermarkets accept it for payments, so you can just scan it with your banking app. Now there's a service that like where you can scan it with the app they have this service, and then it will convert like into like a Lightning QR, and then you can pay with Lightning or like USDT and on chain to pay for Pixes, which is pretty. Is it similar to that, where like it kind of like uses the QR or something you're being presented, and then it makes it so you can pay with Lightning? Is that what it's about?
Yes, that's basically how it works for the Pick and Pay integration. Right. Then they have other integrations where they allow you to buy electricity, and they have basically a vendor account with the electricity provider or electricity service provider, and they just give you an invoice and then they issue your electricity.
Nice. Okay, cool. So it sounds like do they need to be integrated with the merchant rather than like just have to have an app for you, for example, like that you can use? Is it like
Yeah, they integrate with the merchant.
understood? Okay, that makes sense. Oh, okay, cool.
And they deliver fiat to the merchants most of the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because I mean the idea like because it was an idea I had a while ago was like to make it so you didn't have to integrate with the merchants, you could just integrate with you and like you could just appeal to you and me and all the other people who have crypto, and there's a way to like scan a QR for Pix or whatever bank transfer in whatever country, bank details, and then kind of have it so it instantly converts. Issue with that is some KYC is needed, which isn't ideal, but it'd be cool to have that a conversion where you don't need the merchants to get on board, I guess. Okay, so yeah, so it sounds like people are obviously using it quite a lot. I mean, I guess like in South Africa, what's the community for Bitcoin like in South Africa? Like, obviously, you've got I can't. The name escapes me. We've interviewed him before with the surfers, the Bitcoin Herman,
from
yes.
Bitcoin
Bitcoin Kgothatso, that's it. Thank you. So obviously there's those guys, and it sounds like they've grown. Herman's gotten to grow a little bit since we spoke to him on our podcast earlier this year. But like, what's the community like in general? Like, do you go to any meetups or like connect with other like South African Bitcoiners?
Well, I'd say the community is quite strong. We have like WhatsApp groups, Signal groups, all that jazz, Telegram groups, and yeah, meetups not so much. I think we've had a few meetups. Some of the guys in the groups make meetups. I'm just not a fan of meetups, but yeah, some of the I think in Cape Town there's quite a few that happen also on a regular basis. But I think we are mostly a community of builders. Like if you take a look at what Herman is doing with Bitcoin Legacy, what I'm doing with this. I think Craig Raw, the guy who's building Sparrow Wallet as well, and the Crypto Convert guys. So I think it's a huge, not huge, but it's still very small, but strong community of builders. And yeah, we have more and more Bitcoiners coming in and on a regular basis, doing exciting stuff. So yeah, I hope to see more of the community growing, because I want to see Bitcoin used more on a daily basis and less as a investment asset, which is where most people interact with Bitcoin across the African continent. There's actually somebody who set up a stall in one of the biggest malls in the country, a Bitcoin stall, and he's giving an education program, a Bitcoin trading education program, and charging people 8,000 rands. I think that's like $800 or No, it's close to what, $400? But I'm bad at currency conversion, so something like that. And yeah, then it becomes very hard for people to onboard into Bitcoin because they see it as something you trade or invest and not as a tool you could do other interesting things with.
Yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
true. And from everything I've seen when I've spoken to people from South Africa in the Bitcoin community, that there's a big focus in South Africa, especially on like creating more of that circular economy, the use of Bitcoin, not just investing in it. Like when you go to the US
Mm-hmm.
or the UK, people are just interested in investing most of the time. But it's more about the
Mm-hmm.
use and how it can help people and actually drive things forward, which is awesome. But yeah, as you say, like those
Mm-hmm.
stores. I remember when I went to Barcelona, a town near Barcelona, and there was a Bitcoin
Mm-hmm.
store. I was like, oh, this is awesome. Okay, I've never like seen like a proper Bitcoin store. So I went in and I was like, oh, I'll buy this hat, and so I was like, oh, do you accept Lightning? And they're like, oh no. Like, oh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
fair enough. Okay, on chain it is then. I'll wait around. And they're like, oh no. I was like, what do you mean no? Like it's a Bitcoin store. What? So I had to pay with
Mm-hmm.
my credit card to buy this Bitcoin hat. And then it was like, I
Mm-hmm.
thought, okay, but they literally they had like a ATM and they would like sell you Bitcoin, but it was kind of like they also sold Ethereum and other stuff. And it basically was
Mm-hmm.
kind of like Bitcoin for the name, but very much they kept talking to me about trading and stuff. And I was like, I don't really, I'm not a trader. I just work with it and I'm passionate about it. So yeah, it was a bit awkward. But you went to the first African Bitcoin conference, right? Which was, as you said, was in
Yeah.
Ghana. I saw a lot
Mm-hmm.
around that, and obviously, I've spoken to Paco a few times, who I think has seen yourself and others since the conference. How was that to like go? Was it like yeah? Tell me like how it was. Like, what was the experience like? Like, how did it feel? Like, what do you think was the best thing about the conference for you?
Mm-hmm. Well, the best one was the people, Ghana felt quite a lot like South Africa. Actually, it felt quite a lot like Pretoria, to be specific. Yeah, but the people, the local people were great. I got to meet quite a few Bitcoiners who live in Ghana, and also, of course, Bitcoiners from all around the world. So it would be something where you sit with someone for coffee, and then every 5 minutes somebody else comes, and then you end up with a table full of 15 people rotating. Someone new comes in, you greet and talk, have a conversation, do introductions, and all of that. And yeah, even the non-Bitcoiners, but were there, yeah, like people who had an interest in Bitcoin, or some guys who used to work for FTX were also there because FTX, like Binance, had a very strong presence across the African continent. And yeah, they were then talking about, yeah man, it's crypto, blah blah blah, you take it on the chin. People always lose money in crypto stuff, so on and so forth. And yeah, but ultimately it was a very great conference. Everyone was there to learn, everyone was there to talk. And yeah, I did a lot of talking while I was there.
Yeah, no, I mean that's it's good to it's definitely good to see. For me, like my passion lies, I think, similarly in yours, in like trying to bring more of a sort of circular economy and use to Bitcoin, especially like outside
Mm-hmm.
of Europe and the US and like the Western powers, people always say, even though that includes Australia somehow. So
Mm-hmm.
South America for me is like a passionate thing. Like I'm very interested in forwarding adoption there, but also Africa and Asia really interest me too, because there is so many use cases when I've spoken to
Mm-hmm.
people from those countries. So yeah, the next one I'd love to visit myself. But even just going to La BitConf here, or like the first adopting Bitcoin conference in El Salvador last year, like the buzz you
Mm-hmm.
get from people. Sometimes I get a bit sick of talking about Bitcoin all the time, whatever. Like, and I just
Mm-hmm.
start thinking that everyone's saying the same thing, 21 billion, 21 million, and I'm kind of bored of hearing it. And then you go to these
Mm-hmm.
places and you see these people way more intelligent than I am, building
Yeah.
things. like not because they want to make, you know, when I go to the sort of very like altcoin based places, it's all very, you know, they want to make more money and blah, blah, blah. It's more just because they want to fuck the system or do something they think is useful for people, and that's the only real drive, and it's awesome to see.
Most definitely.
So
The star
yeah.
of the show just arrived.
But yeah, so
Yeah, no,
it's
most
definitely
definitely.
good to see.
And that is what uh, I experienced as well, you know. So it's definitely something I want to experience again, because I feel like, oh, having such a high concentration of interesting builders is something we cannot underestimate, you know. I remember, like, I went to the conf as well earlier in the year, and I got to meet like the guys that are building Moon, and I got to conversate with them. And one of the remarks I left them with is, I hope they are getting enough sleep, you know, for this month, because in 2023, it feels like hyperbitcoinization will happen, you know. So, and that being said, Moon Wallet is probably, you know, one of the biggest Lightning wallets or Bitcoin wallets in the world. So I think they're gonna have a very busy year next year. So it would be great to meet them again at a different conference and have another conversation sometime later in 2023 to hear how the year went. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree, and this is the thing. It just gives me more kind of wait. It gives me a bit more like energy every time I meet this kind of. I met the guys Moon as well, and Lightning Labs,
Mm-hmm.
super nice people. Everyone's you just learn such interesting things. You find out what they're building, you find out what they're passionate
Uh-huh.
about, what their focuses are. Super good to do that. So for anyone who hasn't been to any like Bitcoin conferences, I'd recommend heading to some. Like I can only
Mm-hmm.
vouch for the ones like in South Central
Yeah, yeah.
America areas myself, because the ones I've been to in like Europe and stuff have been more crypto conferences. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'd recommend it.
Yeah. It
Just
seems everyone is making that recommendation as well.
yeah, it makes sense. But yeah, I think on my end, I'm out of questions. Like I really wanted to, you know, get a good idea from you about like how Machankura works and like why you chose to do it in that specific way and the difference it's making to people's lives and the countries it's reaching. But also
Mm-hmm.
get an understanding of like South African community and also the African conference and how Bitcoin's doing in a whole from what you've seen. But yeah, is there anything you want to say before we head out? Have you got any it might be worth, you know, plugging like the website, socials and stuff like that, so people can find out where you are?
Oh, no. So the website is 833.mobi. And basically, the thing I think I'd like to reiterate is that hyper Bitcoinization is coming tomorrow. You know? So I hope everyone is ready for that, and you know, also playing their part, because it won't just happen randomly. It has to be initiated. It has to be pushed. So hopefully, everyone is playing their part. But whether or not everyone is playing their part, it will still happen tomorrow. So yeah, I think that's what I'd like to say.
I love it. That's a positive message to leave us on. One for the future,
Mm.
and hopefully we'll look back at
Voila.
this in 2 or 3 years, and we'll see that you were dead right, and it'll be like a
2 or 3
prophecy.
months, man. Two or
Oh,
three
okay,
months.
I like it. Even more confident than me. Okay, sweet. Well,
Mm.
yeah, it's been awesome to have you on, man. I really appreciate it, and yeah, I'm sure everyone out there listening also appreciates it. It's good to get an idea of what you're building, and if you're in South Africa, Uganda, Ghana, Nigeria, any of the countries that you mentioned, uh, give
Mm.
Manchankura a try. Why not? Like it's just a, you know, something
Mm-hmm.
fun to try out. You can send it to
Most definitely.
a little bit of Bitcoin to a few sats to some friends. But yeah, everyone listening, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for coming on as well. But thank you for listening, everyone. Have an amazing day, week, month, year. Keep being happy, keep loving life, and most of all, keep buying Bitcoin.